こんにちは。ベーカーのマッケンジー法律事務所パートナーのMasumotoです。本日は前回に引き続きまして、国際仲裁ビデオシリーズ、東京ミーツシンガポールと題しまして、シンガポールオフィスのプリンシパルのツェンウィー・ウォン弁護士をスピーカーに迎えてお届けいたします。なお、前回と同様、英語で進めてまいりますが、最後に私より簡単に日本語で予約をさせていただきますので、最後までご覧になっていただけますと幸いです。Dominic, Tjen Wee, please continue your conversation.
Thanks, Mika. So, Tjen Wee, thanks again for your time on the previous part. We wanted to continue our conversation with a few more kind of focused questions. So, I guess the first one is, can you let us know about any current trends in Singapore in relations to arbitration?
There's so much, Dominic. Well, suppose beginning from arbitration, one of the biggest news is the launch of the 7th edition of the SIAC arbitration rules on 1st of January this year. With the new rules, if you read it, users can expect, quite innovative mechanisms like the streamlined procedure, coordinated proceedings, and one of the most exciting for me, the possibility of ex parte interim or conservatory measures even before the commencement of an arbitration. And this, I think, is one of the first, right, in the world. Now, in terms of more general trends in dispute resolution, I suppose the use of technology in arbitration and also even in litigation proceedings continues to be of great interest. AI or perhaps more accurately generative AI, that can be a major advantage or a major concern depending on how we harness its use. As you can expect, there is a lot of debate that is going on about how we can use generative AI, but yet also how we need to restrict its use in dispute resolution. And of course, closest to my heart is the construction space. And there have been many case law developments ranging from defects to LDs to performance bonds, the whole project life cycle and the issues that stakeholders in the construction industry typically face. So there have been interesting developments in every aspect of that. But going back to how I started off, there's just too much to cover, Dom. So for everyone out there, please do come forward and speak with us if you want to find out more about any of this.
Yeah, I think the overwhelming kind of feeling I get about the new SIAC rules is that they've listened to users about efficiency, cost, and the like, and that really is a focal point. And as you say, construction is an area that's developing so quickly and in so many different areas. Do you have any kind of practical tips or advice for Japanese companies away from a disputes point perhaps, but when they're negotiating with counterparties in Singapore?
I suppose I think the first thing to appreciate and to think about is that there may be cultural differences between Singapore and Japan, and that often may affect the way that negotiations or dispute handling may take place. So for example, Singapore companies or Singapore businesses tend to be more direct and focused on efficiency. So the dispute may sometimes in Singapore escalate faster than you would expect, or it may appear to someone else to be more acrimonious, right? And that sometimes raises question marks. But a Japanese counterparty in that kind of a situation should then be prepared to manage its expectations in those negotiations and then be able to anticipate the next step and be able to better and more effectively navigate those negotiations. Which sort of brings me to a sort of second practical tip, which is regardless of any sort of cultural differences, what I would say is that both Japanese and Singapore companies, at the end of the day, they all respect the contract and they do respect the terms of the contract. So with parties from both these countries, I think what you can typically expect that they would adhere to the terms of the contract. But beyond that as well, if there is a court order, if there is an arbitration award that has found in a certain way, they would also adhere to them, right? So there is that sort of consistency and confidence in terms of enforcement that you can expect with parties from these two countries. Now, what in a way, I think all this would then mean for people like you and me, for the people listening to this, is to make sure that your contract negotiations and your contract terms are all well and properly drafted, right? Even things like the dispute resolution mechanism, which is something that people often don't pay so much attention to, that may be something that you should want to think about more. Questions like whether you want arbitration or litigation, which arbitral rules ought to apply, whether you want to have a preconditional mediation or negotiation step. You want to think about all this, and you want to set the stage in a way that is advantageous to you, so that when in future a dispute arises, you would be in the most advantageous position.
That's great, Tjen Wee, and I think that's certainly true from our experience as well, that having obviously a clear contract, but especially when a dispute does come up, having a very clear and obvious roadmap for how these things can be dealt with is super important. So I guess the last question to come on to would be whether there are any practical tips or advice for Japanese companies with a business or a subsidiary in Singapore when it comes to the dispute resolution system itself.
I think first and foremost, I think a Japanese company with a business or subsidiary in Singapore should be very familiar with the legal landscape, right? Be very familiar with what are the do's and don'ts in the jurisdiction, in this case, Singapore. Know what are the types of dispute resolution mechanisms, know what's the legal system, and also, as important, know the differences between them. Then I suppose, ask yourself what is best for you in the event of a dispute. So for example, do you want confidentiality in your business, or would in fact publicity be an advantage for you? Other questions like, do you want to force parties to undergo negotiations or mediation before the commencement of any formal proceedings? And of course, the age-old question, are there other proceedings in that jurisdiction that you might get embroiled in apart from arbitration and litigation? In some jurisdictions like Singapore, you do have what we call adjudication proceedings for certain construction disputes, for example. So you need to be aware of that and know that potentially you might get involved in those proceedings despite what you say in your contract. So, knowing all these differences and appreciating what is best for your business or what is best for you if a dispute arises, I think you can then consider and then best navigate and prepare yourself for any dispute resolution system in that jurisdiction. And perhaps most important, and my final point would be, I suppose, know and engage trusted legal professionals, right, who are familiar with both Japanese and the Singapore legal systems. I think they are the ones who can then partner with you and then provide valuable guidance to ensure that your interests are always protected. And I suppose that's where you come in, Dominic.
Well, where we come in as a team, I think that's the important point for today. Yeah, I think that we certainly massively agree, certainly on the last point, that early engagement and proper strategic planning in the event of a dispute is absolutely crucial for all of us. Tjen Wee, thanks so much for your time today and for all of your insight.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much, Dominic. Thank you so much, Mika.
Thank you, Dominic and Wee. So, 私から簡単に日本語で要点をご説明させていただきますと、まずシンガポールにおける昨今のトレンドやニュースという点につきましては、 2025年1月1日より施行されております、私約仲裁規則の改正が挙げられておりました。合理化手続き、調整手続き、仲裁手続き開始前の暫定措置、または保全措置などについて改正がなされております。また、仲裁や訴訟における生成 AI を含むテクノロジーの利用は重要なトレンドであるということでしたし、また、建設分野においては多くのケースローが、発展しているということでございました。次に、紛争となる可能性がある場合に、シンガポール企業と交渉する際のアドバイスといたしましては、シンガポールと日本の文化の違いが交渉や紛争の処理の仕方に影響を与える可能性があることを十分認識する必要があるということでございました。シンガポール企業はより直接的で効率的に行動する傾向がありますので、紛争をより迅速にエスカレートさせる可能性があるということです。また、契約内容を尊重し、遵守することの重要性と、紛争解決メカニズムを含めて、契約内容を明確かつ慎重に検討し、交渉することが必要であるということでございました。最後に、シンガポールの紛争解決制度に関する日本企業に対するアドバイスといたしましては、紛争解決メカニズムやリーガルシステムの違い、種類をですね、よく理解するということ。また関連しまして、特定の建設紛争についてアジティケーションといった別の紛争解決続きもあるというようなお話でございました。また、紛争が発生した場合に、自社のビジネスにとって何が最善であるのか、例えば紛争についてコンフィデンシャルとすることが重要であるのかといったことや、訴訟や仲裁などの正式な手続きの前に、交渉や調停をまず行うことを義務付ける必要があるかといったことについて、事前によく検討し、評価しておくことが必要であるということでございました。そして最後に、日本とシンガポール双方の法制度に精通した信頼できる外部弁護士に相談をすることが重要であるということでございました。以上、前回から2回にわたりまして、弊社シンガポールオフィスよりTjen Wee弁護士をスピーカーに迎えまして、シンガポールの仲裁実務の概要をお届けさせていただきました。次回はタイの仲裁実務についてご説明をさせていただく予定にしております。引き続き本ビデオシリーズをご覧いただけますと幸いです。本日はご視聴いただきましてありがとうございました。